Who is Sarah, and more importantly, what you do?
I'd say I'm a humanitarian by default. My passion and belief is to help.
So we've got to unpack all of that because there's so much you built. Tell us, what is Sparkle?
So Sparkle is kind of a holistic approach to grassroots charities.
What might you have done differently 10 years ago if you knew what was going to happen? Would you have not started?
I had that 2015 when I had that meeting with Elon Musk and he told me, make your money first and then make a difference afterwards. Those lessons now have helped me be the person I am today, so it swings in roundabouts.
So when you get asked this favourite question of donors, right? What's the percent of overhead and what's the percent of that goes on the ground? How do you answer that?
Here we go again. I mean, I'm very brutally honest, and I said, do you want the honest answer? Not that I'm going to make up the numbers, or do you want kind of the reality of what I'm going to tell you to make you feel better about where your money's going?
Sarah Brook is an award-winning humanitarian and founder and CEO of the Sparkle Foundation, leading purpose-driven work across Africa. Known for her integrity and heart-led leadership, she is committed to turning compassion into lasting impact and putting Malawi firmly on the map in the UAE. This is Unboxing Impact, a series of conversations with people working at the intersection of business, capital, and social change. I am Sunil Lalvani, and my work spans international business and more than a decade building a social enterprise that delivers sustainable access to clean water across rural Africa. In this series, we explore what impact really means, the trade-offs and tensions involved, and how success should be defined beyond financial return. Sarah, welcome to Unboxing Impact.
Happy to be here.
Great pleasure. I wanted to do this for a while with you because we've been friends a long time and we share so much in common in terms of running an NGO, running it from Dubai, all the struggles that we share. So we're going to dive into that today and I hope share some stories and maybe uncover some truths, some challenges that we all face.
I'm ready.
Good.
I'm ready.
Let's go for it. Okay. So for those of people who don't know, give us a quick 1 minute synopsis into who is Sarah and more importantly, what you do.
1 minute. Okay. I'd say I'm a humanitarian by default. My passion and belief is to help as many people as possible in the best way possible. But that's mainly been through the Sparkle Foundation, which after a life-saving operation when I was 18, quite literally closing my eyes and pointing at a map, I was prioritised to be seen first because of the colour of my skin. And that led to a whole kind of further set of events, which meant I was prioritised. Children died for me to be saved, which I think you can imagine as an 18-year-old changes everything. And I made a commitment to want to make a difference to one child's life 17 years ago. And now it's 30,000 children, the Sparkle Foundation, registered here in the UAE, the US, the UK and Malawi. And we've created a holistic model with education, medical, community and nutrition. And it's grown arms, wings, legs, and everything in between.
Okay. So we've got to unpack all of that because there's so much you built in there. First of all, for those who don't know, and you've got such a fantastic voice in the UAE, but tell us what is Sparkle?
So Sparkle is kind of a holistic approach to grassroots charity. So how we look at it is there's no single solution. So for us, it's really important that if you're educating a child, you need to feed them. If you're feeding a child, you also need to look at their medical support. And if you do all three of those, the parents, the guardians also need to be engaged in the community. So our long-term aim is that any child that goes through our services will not need to be in an NGO or go back into the system and can stand on their own 2 feet, whether it's getting a job, whether it's going to university, whatever it may be, so they can be self-sustaining. And we created that model truthfully through lots of failure, through lots of being on the ground, challenges and understanding. And our aim obviously mainly is in Malawi at the moment, but is to replicate across the continent because there isn't a model for grassroots charity that is like Sparkle. And I feel there's so much money, I'm sure as we're going to go into, that is invested in the sector. People are trying different ideas. And certainly when I founded Sparkle, it was so hard to look at best practice. So for us, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So we've created what we believe is a best practice model that hopefully other people don't have to go through the trials and tribulations I did and can join us because actually the world doesn't need another charity. We just need to come together because our end goal ultimately is the same, yours and mine and anyone else in the sector, is to make a difference.
So okay, so you preempted my question. No, which is fine, because you gave this beautiful explanation of what Sparkle is, a holistic organization. But yeah, I'm sure that's not how it started. And as is best practice, actually, is learn from mistakes, or learn from challenges, or learn from outcomes themselves. So what did Sparkle start as first?
A nursery school. So very simple kind of, I thought, nursery. There was almost 80% of children in Malawi that weren't accessing early years, and they were going straight into school at primary. And if you look at the attendance rates of primary through to secondary, it's 33% make it through to secondary. It was really, okay, where can we start this change? And I did infant development psychology at university, and I knew that 2 to 6 is such a crucial years of a child's life. So we started there. As I kind of quickly learned that our kids were falling asleep by 10 o'clock, because how do you learn when you're hungry?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it then evolved with the feeding program. And we were losing back then on average a child a month. So I was like, okay, this is really tough.
Sorry, you're losing it, meaning that
Passing away, yeah. From preventable diseases, for things that cost
Yeah.
literally 5-10 dirhams.
yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't make sense. We think education, we hear all these quotes, knowledge is power, but actually it's better to learn under a tree, and to have the right teacher training,
Yeah.
and to have the food so that the child can even absorb the information, than it is to have a big fancy classroom and nothing else going on inside of it.
I'm going to digress a bit, but it was so interesting when we came to Dubai. It's been 20 something years now, and the kids were small. There were a handful of primary schools here, and one of them, which I will choose not to name, they don't know who they want to say this, but they built this beautiful new campus with a planetarium inside.
Don't give too much away.
There's not that many with their planetarium, but we went into the school, and it was brand new, and they took us a tour around this really fantastic campus, and everything they were saying along the way was, and we're going to have 5-star facilities here, and 5-star facilities here, and a 5-star coffee shop for the parents to come in, and then we're going to have this planetarium. And I asked the question, you're going to have this planetarium, and okay, you're going to show one time how the universe is structured and works and whatever, and then what? And what are you using this planetarium for? And they didn't really have an answer that satisfied me anyway. And that's exactly what you said. They focus so much on the hardware and making it look fancy, etc. And it's going to be the same with schools and hospitals and all these things. But ultimately, it comes down to the teachers and the doctors that are there, and the quality that happens. And I look back for myself, even now at the tender age of 56, and even my kids, when I look back, we remember the teachers that made an impact. The classrooms didn't make a difference, and the environments didn't make a difference, but you'll remember the names of those handful of teachers that they're the ones who impacted the most. So I agree so much with you that it's about the end quality of what you're teaching, and not the facility that's...
I think it's also human beings of today's world, wherever, it's not just in the charity sector. Like, look, we live in Dubai, where everyone is driven by new, glamorous, glossy outside infrastructure. Same in the charity sector. Like, people think that if they've got a gorgeous picture or video of, we've built this amazing school, the reality is 20, 30 years ago, people would have been like, wow, isn't it amazing, want to help more. That's not what we're dealing with today, is because people have got more knowledge.
Yeah.
So we're asking, that's great, like you with the planetarium, but what actually are you doing inside of there?
Yeah.
Where's the impact long term that we can see that as a child going to this school now is a better citizen in the world?
Yeah. So, we met, and I was completely blown away by your story, and really, really amazed by what you've done, and your grit and your effort. And in my head, Sparkle was always a school, or schools. And then we had the pleasure to go and visit, I think it was 3 years ago. And even though you had told me, I was amazed by what I saw, on a number of fronts. Because you gave the number 30,000
Yeah.
kids you've impacted and transformed and changed lives, which is absolutely fantastic. If I compare that to Project Maji, and please hear me out on the whole thing, because I really want to give you due credit on this. We have a number of 500,000 people that we've impacted, and we impact with provision of water. But our model is building kiosks and running them, but it's very much a cookie cutter approach. We have a standardized kiosk, and we build it, and we replicate and replicate and replicate. And in terms of best practices, yes, we figured out a way to do this and replicate quickly and efficiently, and let's say cost effectively. But whenever I talk to people, I always give your example, okay, that it's, and you've got to take the numbers in context as well. That's what's important. But I do it really to praise you, because there's, we help 500,000 people and you've helped 30,000 people. I always say the complexity of what you do far outweighs what we do, because we build, and we have digital systems and we maintain, we've got one person in the village that looks after it. When we came to see your school, and say we came with my daughter Tia, we saw the Judge School. You've got to look after teachers, you've got to recruit teachers, you've got to train teachers all the time. Even things like making sure that there's papers and pencils in the school and there's teaching aids and books, etc. And then we saw the feeding program, and that every single day kids are getting fed, which is a cooked hot meal, I should also stipulate, which is amazing. And then we saw the dispensaries, that you're making sure that you've got medicines for the community, and then you're serving the community around, the elder people in the community. And it was, I really hats off to you, because it is, I work in the sector and I didn't appreciate how complex that was. And I think that's something that just really amazed me. And then when you explained how you said you went from a nursery to being a holistic entity, I guess, how do you find getting that story across to people? Because storytelling in our world is so critical, and your startup story is amazing, but in terms of getting across to people what they're actually funding, how do you deal with those complexities?
The easiest way is to take people there,
Yeah.
you said. That is because when you see it, there's no one that's ever gone to Malawi that said, oh, you oversold it. Everyone always comes and says, wow, it's way bigger and more fads than we ever thought. How do you articulate that and get the narrative correct is where it's a challenge. The biggest difference, actually what I'm doing my thesis on at the moment, with why people opt for single solution projects, is purely from a marketing reason. It is easier with a one-stop shop of, Project Magi. We know, if you know what Magi kind of means and stands for, it's water. It's very clear. We know what we're buying into. We can clearly see our impact. Sparkle, not only does the name not help, because sparkle, what's that even mean? But then, okay, you explain the different stories and the impacts and the pillars. It's like, okay, that's a lot. Where's my small contribution actually going in this? And trying to find that to make the biggest impact in a 1 minute attention span that someone's probably got, or a one-liner on the website or in a social media reel, is really, really tricky. We've not nailed it. Otherwise, if we had, I'd probably be a billionaire not needing any donations anymore, because I think everyone that comes, we've got a 100% conversion rate. They want to get involved and want to be more part of it. But I do think it's changing. I think the biggest way that I've been able to help people understand it is from giving knowledge. And I spend most of my time, 80% of it now, going around telling corporates, telling donors, telling individuals, schools, wherever, this is why charities need this approach.
Yeah.
Do I think there's obviously still room for both 100%? Because we've got holistic, you're kind of a single solution, but then there's a hybrid whereby where you've put your water towers, there's then schools in that area, there's other charities that come in and support. So if you actually took it from a kind of bird's eye view, you'd see that there are other third parties that are helping make our model, taking on what we're doing, as you said. People say, would you do it if you knew what you were doing now? It's a lot of work, there's a lot of responsibility, but for me personally, if I want to believe that we can change the GDP of a country, this is the only way.
That's very interesting how you phrase that. So we both crossed 10 years this year. So congratulations.
And you?
I had a very emotional moment at our 10 years, exactly on that weekend. So we made a documentary and we screened it internally. And that weekend of March 22nd, which is World Water Day, which is when we started, we made the documentary, and I did all the promo talks to the team and the motivational talks, etc., for the next 10 years, etc. But when we screened the documentary, I was kind of a wreck for that weekend, because I think it was the first time I sort of stopped and reflected on what we'd done, and it really hit me in a hard way. And one of the things I reflected on was what's next. And we don't run commercial organizations, there's no equity to sell to somebody. and and you'll know what I mean, but I want to be very clear when people are listening to this, there's no way out, right? And no way out doesn't have to be a bad thing, okay? Because we obviously do what we do because we love what we do, okay? But it would be nice to know sometimes that I'm looking, even from a practical point of view, okay, I had to say, we get hit by a bus, what happens to our organizations beyond that? Because we rely on passion to drive this, because people aren't coming to work for us for massive salaries and big bonuses and stuff like that. So let me ask you 2 or 3 questions on that. So 10 years on,
Yeah.
and it's because of what you said. If you knew what you were getting into, would you have done it? Would you have done it in the way that you did it? What might you have done differently 10 years ago if you knew what was going to happen? Would you have not started, or would you have started in a completely different way? What might have been those things?
I had that 2015 when I had that meeting with Elon Musk, and he told me, make your money first and then make a difference afterwards. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. I look now at what I'm having to do to get donations and the amount of time and sacrifice, especially now just becoming a mom, it takes. If I had a successful business running alongside this, that a percentage of it was going to fund the projects, would that have given me a better quality of life? Potentially, would it also mean that I'm not at the mercy of the public? Maybe those types of things I would have implemented sooner, but then in the other breath of it, I would never have understood to the level that I do, because not everyone can go and spend 5, 6 years literally living on the ground in a village and understanding the way of life. And has it had an effect on my identity as a human being? 100% yes. I'm British by passport. I'm resident of the UAE, but my heart is in Malawi. Like, I spent majority of my 20s in Malawi, living in the village, understanding the way of life. And it's hard for me to relate to anything other than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean I'm particularly well relatable here. I'm not well related back in the UK and in Malawi naturally as a white person in the village. I'm still not either. So that's been a big thing. And then I think the other thing maybe that I'd potentially would have seen about changing was more about the belief in myself. I could have probably got where I wanted to now with the charity if I'd not listened to so many people's opinions, especially those that told me it couldn't be done.
Mm-hmm.
For everyone that said no kind of delayed me, because it was a time of thinking of, okay, maybe I shouldn't, let me look at an alternative. No, okay. But those lessons now have helped me be the person I am today. So it swings in roundabouts.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So obviously I came from a business background. We said we want to talk about politics here, so we can keep Elon Musk out of it. But it's interesting about how people look at this. And I think there's a difference between having money and then giving money to a charity, and then sort of going all in and running an organization, because it becomes so much more about not so much about many other things than just the money side.
Yeah.
The money, of course, is essential, because it's not going to work without that. But I think when people look at these things, and you'll know this, and we can dive into this a bit deeper now. The frustrating thing about, I'm going to say some donors, not all of them, because some are very, very good, of course, but some donors want to write you a $10,000 check and frankly think they own you as a result of it. It's like, no, I'll give you $10,000 and, you got to run things this way and this way and this way, and what you're doing there is completely wrong and this and that. Well, take your gloves off and come and do it and learn the lessons that we've learned the hard way, and then tell us if you agree with that. Some are very, very different.
Yeah.
Some write very, very big checks and say it's unrestricted and go and do what you want to do because we trust you. How have you found the donor landscape that you've had to deal with, and how have you found? Because you said something interesting earlier about there's more awareness now.
Yeah.
Have you found that the donor landscape has changed, or is that also because you've learned how to talk to donors and you've maybe talked to different donors now, knowing what the pitfalls might be?
Yeah, I think it's definitely evolved. I mean, naturally, as you get older, when I was in my 20s, Sparkle started, I funded it myself. I got the job here to fund it. So that gave me an autonomy that when I talk about like the differences between you and I and the businesses, that's why I've walked that firsthand. It was nice not to have to be accountable to anyone, because I knew where the money was going, what decisions I needed to make without having to cross-check everything. When I made the decision to quit everything and move to Malawi full time, I had a realization that if I was ever going to ask for money, I had to be so convicted in my spirit that I knew where it was going. And I think that's where the challenge is, and I'd put you in the same category as this, is that people buy into people.
Mm-hmm.
Both of our organisations, we are the brand, whether we like it or not. And therefore, a lot of people, donors especially, assume they're buying into us,
Mm-hmm.
which then dissociating Sparkle from Sarah is a real challenge for me. So, yes, the landscape of donors has evolved, but the pressures internally still haven't, because whether it's 1,000, whether it's 100,000, they're still thinking they're giving to me. And what actually that makes it difficult for me is things naturally go wrong from time to time. Sometimes you want to have a break, maybe, and you want to step back. And if it's not you, then, oh, we're not sure if we're going to give, or if it's one of my colleagues that they're dealing with, or what's happening now and what's happening in your life that could impact where our donations go or don't go or come. And I think if you look at our kind of donor trajectory for Sparkle, we don't really have any donors that have started with us that have left, so they've continued on, but we have quite a close-knit community and group of people. New people hear about us and do get involved, but usually how they're getting involved is because someone shared my story or somebody's a friend of a friend. It's very rarely that it's based on, we've heard about this fantastic model that's happening
Mm-hmm.
and we're buying into that. I'm trying my best to get it to a point like that, because if you're buying into the model, you're buying into the children, it makes it so much easier and less pressure on me, because actually we're all sat then around the table for the right reasons. And I do believe now, as Sparkle is growing, I'm in rooms with some of the big players in the philanthropy circle, and they're the questions that they're asking about those things. What's your model? What's your theory of change? Why are you doing what you're doing? What's the percentage of money that is going on the ground versus to admin? Another separate conversation for later, I'm sure. But at least those doors are opening, rather than, wow, you're so inspiring, we want to support you, which for me is growth.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good, and congrats on that, because I think that is important, because you've clearly evolved from being, yeah, a one-site school charity to being something that is hopefully driving systems change and thought change in that, and that's really important, because what I've always enjoyed about talking to you is your vision and your mindset is that you're never satisfied with what you've got, and that's great, because I mean that I say it does make you a great entrepreneur, albeit a social entrepreneur, because you've done something and accomplished it, and now what's next? You don't sort of rest on your laurels and think, okay, I can sit back and we're there now. And I think part of it is, and I think this is what stresses me out as well, because the problems we challenge are the same in terms of the amount of people that we are impacting versus the amount of people that needs to be impacted. It's a drop in the ocean, basically. And once, and I'm speaking for you if you agree, I think, but once you've achieved something, and you can achieve something, be it 1,000 kids or 10 or 20 or 30,000 kids, and you've got to do 10x that or 100x that, and that you've impacted some, it means you can do more. But there is so much more effort and time that needs to go into that, and it just becomes, I think, almost the way I feel is sometimes the more I achieve, the more frustrated I am, because I know I can do more, and I know Project Mud, you can do more, and the systems that we have can do more if the right other things fall into place, and that's a very, very big if, obviously. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, it resonates. I guess I'm not driven at all by the numbers, because for me it's the memories. So because some of these children that I help deliver are now going to university, every time I think of them, it's, okay, where's their career going? There's still that real, raw personal connection. Sparkle's not grown to a point, yes, there's 30,000 lives that have impacted, but our founding children, so to speak, that worked for our Still Doors are still in our programme. I think maybe when that cohort kind of moves on, it will then become much more of a strategic type of thing. But there's such a personal connection for me. The staff have known me since I was 18. I walk into the village and, the village chief, the grandma, like, she's growing old with me, which makes it more that type of feeling. I think naturally, as human beings, as we are, as a type of leaders that we want to be, is there's no ceiling. It's and more and more and more, and it's a bit of a buzz, whether it's sport, whether it's in the charity sector, you've reached this, now next. I think where my frustration more sits, to be honest, is that it's common sense. We are raising so much money globally. The size of the problem could be fixed by the amount of money we're raised.
Yeah.
Why are the people that are controlling that not doing more about it? Because I've been on the ground, I've seen it. It can be done if we bring the right people together in the room. But for whatever reason, and that will not be a conversation over here, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And that's what frustrates me, because the amount of conversations I'm having on a daily basis of, oh, we did this, or we gave this, but we never saw a report. Oh, we did this because we were told to do this, but we didn't hear any feedback. And it's like, well, where did that actually go?
Yeah.
Where was that money sent? And that's what ruins it for so many of us, because it's the little reputational damage of the sector in general that turns people away.
So when you get asked this favorite question of donors, right, what's the percent of overhead and what's the percent of that goes on the ground? How do you answer that?
Here we go again. I mean, I'm very brutally honest. And I said, do you want the honest answer? Not that I'm going to make up the numbers, or do you want kind of the reality of what I'm going to tell you to make you feel better about where your money's going? And most people say, oh, that sounds controversial. Tell us the honest thing. I've never had anyone where I've actually explained to an analogy of saying, if you had a friend that needed heart surgery and you said, you know, he's going to be dying, I'm going to help him, and you took him to the hospital, you bought all the tools and all the equipment, and then the heart surgeon was there and you said, sorry, I'm not going to pay you, what would you do? Of course we'd pay the heart surgeon. Okay, please apply that now to the charity. That's literally what you're doing to me, and also expecting that I am going to ensure the safekeeping of the money, the safekeeping of the children, ensure that we run a well-oiled machine. And then you can almost see it's like a light bulb moment that goes off. They then come naturally with, yeah, but people shouldn't be flying in first class. People shouldn't be having this and this. And again, I just come back with not trying to justify anything, but if you're running a $150 million portfolio for, say, one of the big four banking, and you're expected to generate that much money, say, for a cancer charity, there's a certain skill set that's required. You're never going to bring someone across that's capable of doing that if you don't pay them the salary that probably they were getting there. Surely we'd think we should pay them more, because actually they're making more of an impact on the world and leaving more of a legacy, because the more efficient they are, the better money you're going to get on return on your social investment. And it's like, actually, not thought about it like that. So I pray and hope and believe that if all charity leaders can kind of come together, have that same mindset, and we almost spread that word, there will be a change for the better. That won't be in the top 3 questions I get asked every time I've got a presentation, of how much money do you earn, why do you live in Dubai, and then how much goes to the children versus how much is going to funding the admin.
Good answer. I find it really frustrating, as I know you do, where exactly to what you said. Okay, we are providing essential services for life. Okay, and okay, take Sparkle. If Sparkle was a for-profit entity doing the schooling in Dubai with planetariums, etc., right? You'd get shareholders in, you'd get people throwing money at you, right? If it was fee based,
and a marketing budget that you wouldn't have to defend.
Well, absolutely. And the simple difference is this. I think again, the narrative is we all, not the narrative. The truth is, every kid in the world needs and deserves education to further their lives. The fact that someone's building schools in Dubai or the UK or the US or wherever it is, the developed world, the parents and the kids can afford to pay for an education. Okay, you're providing that exact same service in a situation where, unfortunately, they cannot afford to pay for it, and unfortunately, the government can't afford to pay for it either. So, what's the option? We don't do it, okay, or someone like you comes and steps in to do it, and then, unfortunately, because you've chosen that, you're now penalized for that. Right? You know, you want to take on people, and we talked about it before we started about trying to get on people, and you know, and the more you raise, okay, the more money you got to deal with. So you need to have, first of all, a really good systems, a good CFO, right, good operations people, because as I said, what you're doing is not simple at all. Good procurement people, logistics people, very good teachers to deliver quality, and everyone is expected to come on at zero or subsidized salaries, expected to leave the commercial sector, okay, to come and join you for less of a salary. How is that fair? And people just don't get that. People just think you're doing charity, so therefore you should work on a pittance and you should have to struggle financially in life. If you go back to COVID and look at how on, was it Monday mornings or Thursday mornings, everyone step out in the UK and clap for the nurses, that really put food on their plates, didn't it? But it really highlighted how important these services are for people. And the moment COVID's over, well, sorry, no one's clapping for them anymore. They're back to their crappy salaries and ridiculous hours. And work that should be appreciated and is appreciated at an hour of need just doesn't get.
Yeah, that's full circle back to what I was saying with what the human mind is now attracted to. Because just like we're saying about the glossy buildings and everything else, the definition of money is success. The definition of success is money. So while we've still got that mentality that is what people are striving for, why would people want to go and join the charity sector? Yes, you can see new kind of generations coming in, the younger ones especially, that really care more about the world and the impact. But don't offend any much younger generations here by saying this, but their way and styles of working as well, they wouldn't take as much as we would take back then because rights have drastically improved. And so it's a very chicken and egg situation. And for me, I really feel that we've got to strike that balance of understanding, because it is logic. Exactly what you've said is common sense, what we're saying, but yet it's not relatable to the world. And how that is going to change, I'm not entirely sure. The only thing I can hope is that, God forbid, not more situations like COVID, but the world is in a really tough place right now. It's getting darker than ever, and people are having to hold on to the little faith and hope that they've got in humanity. It's going to be more people that are doing situations like we are that go, actually, they've got something that we haven't got, and that's purpose. And I think the value of purpose is dramatically going to increase over the next few years, especially with AI, robots. What's the big differentiator between us and a robot is who we are as human beings. And that's one thing that we're going to have that they won't. And people are going to lose jobs because they're going to be replaced by robots. And it's all going to come back to what makes us a good purpose-led human being, because we're only on this world once. So let's make the most of it, and let's make the biggest legacy we can while we're here.
So it's so interesting you say that, because all the other interviews I've done on this program, my first question, and I consciously didn't ask it to you, and that's why, because it came out naturally. My first question to everyone is, how do you define success? Because people are coming from a commercial sector and let's say a non-charity sector, and it's always because I always push on that the world is driven today. You are defined as successful if you've made more money, or if you've got that title, or you've made that monetary or commercial achievement. But the world and life has to be more than that. And you're right. We're going through some real paradigm shifts in society, in the world, from a technology point of view and from a security point of view. That what the world's going to look like in 1, 3, 5 years, who knows? And it's got to be worth more than money. This may be a whole other podcast. We've got to discuss it another time. But I just want to bring it back to the point we said about donors and donors' philosophies, because that I think is something where we have to talk about unboxing impact. About talking, people have to understand what is impact and what are they funding and why do they do it. And it's not so simplistic about the traditional charity sector, and I hate that phrase as well. When I always say Project Margie is a not-for-profit social enterprise, and I use those words very, very deliberately. I try not to say, in shortcuts, I say we're a charity or an NGO, but we're actually a non-for-profit social enterprise. And I explain that very clearly because we're a social enterprise, because we run ourselves like a business for all intents and purposes. The only difference is our key KPIs are not turnover and profit, it's number of people served and what's the percentage of uptime of our water facilities, etc., etc. And we're a not-for-profit social enterprise because we're a not-for-profit. And I hate that phrase anyway, not-for-profit, because I think it conjures up so many things.
I think just lower than everybody else, so that how yours then seen by the world. Honestly, you watch people shift from their we're Fortune 500 company or a not-for-profit. They met in different spaces.
No, exactly. And the ironic thing is, first of all, I always say this, that not-for-profit is a legal status. It's not a philosophy on how one should run their organization. Because it almost sounds like I'm trying to make a loss. And I think that's the mindset. Not-for-profit means if you're not profit, you must be loss-making. No, actually, there's nothing wrong with a not-for-profit organization striving to make a financial surplus. But this language is very loaded and clear, because actually we can make a profit, but it's got to be called a surplus. Okay, and the difference is it doesn't get dividended out.
No.
That's the main difference. But it's prudent for any organization to be sitting on a cash surplus, because what happens when donors don't turn up, right? And you've got salaries to pay, and you've got meals to provide to kids that aren't being funded by a donor this week or this month or this year. People just hear this not-for-profit and I think in their heads imagine something that is not reality. And you put a picture up on LinkedIn or Instagram or both, maybe, I don't know, where I remember it was a dark picture. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's a dark picture, and you're sitting with a hoodie on. You don't remember? And you put an explanation there, and you said, and you put something like, where am I? And you were in the Emirates business class.
Oh, yeah.
Lounge.
Yeah, I know the one, yeah.
Right, and you had to explain on the message that you were there because you fly to Malawi, so you have a silver card from Emirates, so you're entitled to use the lounge. But you felt, very conscious of the fact that if you're seen in the business class lounge by a potential donor, it's like, well, hang on, I gave you 50 quid. Right?
Yeah.
So obviously use my 50 quid to go and buy a business class ticket. I mean, people just don't think deeply from a perspective about this. Again, this whole question of overheads is, first of all, and I say this genuinely, but I know you don't do it, but if somebody running a commercial institute, okay, is doing the kind of work and travel that you do, and their company pays them to go business class for their comfort so that they can land somewhere and get off the plane and go to work, that's fine. Okay, these classes exist. Okay, these classes exist for just pure comfort as well, I understand. But they can't, go on a 12-hour flight and you sit in business class, you get off the plane more comfortable than you do coming out of economy. That does make you more effective when you're on the ground. Okay, but I know you don't do that. Okay, but if you did, so what? Number one, and the fact you had to be so conscious about it, and I get it, I completely get it. That's just a real shame that you had to be so conscious about that. That's how people might see stuff, and they might judge you on that.
I think on that, I've taken a different stance though. Truthfully, I think last year was the biggest one for me of growing, learning and understanding. So just two parts of your question. I think from a number one for the kind of donation landscape, it starts at the top, and I think that's, I guess, if any grant makers are listening to this, but the control that they place, we only started applying for grants about 3 years ago because we could never meet the reporting requirements, and it would actually cost us more to report back than what it was to implement the project itself. Still, 90% of the grants that we apply for say something along the lines of, we will not cover any operational costs. Why are there so many buildings that have got nothing inside of them? Why are there so many boreholes that aren't working? Because if you don't pay for the people and the operations, you're doing a quick plaster over a wound fix, one stop, move on. So until that changes, and if you work out 80% roughly of money that's going into projects globally is from grant making organisations. So that's, for me, top down, that's got to shift if we want this whole pressure, control, whatever it looks like, of donors on charities. Because if we were given the freedom to actually be able to do the things we want to do, then it would naturally be different. I think the second part of, for me as an individual, I actually realised that the higher you go, or perceived higher that you go, the more successful you become, the more light shines on you, and the more people are going to have a problem. I am, for all the things I am, and I've got many flaws, one thing is I believe I'm a kind individual, but what last year taught me is that people will find any reason to try and bring me down. She's this, she's that. Why has she adopted a child? Why does she do this? Why does she have a gala like this or this? If I listen to all of the noise, I'd spend too much time trying to put out those fires than actually doing the work I do. And I know in my heart, there is nothing that anyone could come to me and say that I've not done with good intent. I've made mistakes, 100% yes. So I made an active decision about 6 months ago, you know what, sod it. If I get an upgrade, I'm not going to hide under my hoodie. If my mum and dad, fortunately in a position that we can go to nice restaurants and take me when they come here, I'm not going to say, sorry, I can't go because what's appropriate or not. If I get given gifts, I'm going to wear them, because my whole life has been like, I've got to hide because A, of who I am, and B, because of the work I do. But actually, if we're to inspire the next generation to want to even come into the sector, the only way to do that is to not be, woe is me, how difficult life is because I'm the founder of a charity, but actually I've managed to be able to do both.
Yeah.
And the only way I've been able to do both is truthfully being based in the UAE, because humanity here has blessed me with so many opportunities, from a home to an office to all the things people have kind of donated in kind, that I can sustain myself. But it doesn't mean that equally has just been put to me on a silver plate.
Yeah.
There has been years of relationship building, years of kind of, sacrifice to get to this point. And it would be wrong of me now to see the fruits of everything that is happening for Sparkle and want to shy away from it, because we have to have moments where we go, you know what, we put the work in to be able to see the reward for this. And it doesn't motivate me. No handbag, no job title, no car could ever satisfy me anywhere near enough as seeing a face of a child who says, I'm full today, or I've been educated, or I'm no longer going to die because we've been treated. And that's my own walk. And I would say to anyone, unless you've walked in my footsteps, please don't judge me. And to anyone who's CEOs of companies, I find it fascinating, especially when I look sometimes at some of our board members or even just wider kind of business people, advisors that we've got around. They say to me, we could never do what you do. And I'm always like, goodness, all that imposter syndrome I had of, wow, you lead multinational companies and they're still saying they could never do what I do. So let's give credit where credit's due, especially to you, to myself, to anyone, leaders around the world. It is not an easy task that we take on to change lives. And there's no push your laptop down, finish for the day. There's no, like you said, getting out of it. There's no big payoff at the end of this. This is a life choice, an unbelievably rewarding one, and a privilege to be able to serve people. But it does come at a huge cost.
Yeah, well, that's you said so much in that. And that's beautifully said, and I'm really glad you found yourself in that place now, because you do deserve it. I mean, anyone who does what you do, what anyone does in the giving space does, like we said, should not be penalized for it. I think exactly as you said, there's got to be that balance. We're human beings living in the societies that we do. Yeah, and it's not about having a Ferrari or a fancy yacht or a private jet, but yeah, being able to go to a nice restaurant that's in Dubai because you live in Dubai, accepting an upgrade because you're given it. The fact that even has to be thought about is a real challenge. But I'm glad you're in the place you are, and you do deserve it. And it's nothing wrong with it in my opinion. So good for you on that. And then this other point that you said, that we couldn't do what you do. I was 25 years in the commercial sector, and the stuff I had to learn in the first 1 or 2 years really quickly in adapting a mindset in how you run things in the non-profit sector is very, very different, and frankly, from a practical purpose, very valuable skills, which you can never learn in the commercial, because you don't have the constraints that you have. Lack of money completely, for one, on how you shoestring stuff, and how you storytell, and how you lead, and how you motivate, and how you can drive yourself at times when you think, I just can't go anymore.
There's been many a time.
No, so really kudos to you, and please don't ever doubt yourself.
No, thank you. I think it's hard, as a leader, when you alluded to it earlier, when people are in jobs because of their heart, not because of the salary. The responsibility and the weight that carries, at any one moment, someone could turn around and say, my need has changed at home, so I've got to leave. It may be, or actually, this isn't enough for me to stay in this job. And then the first question you're going to get asked naturally by anyone in a corporate or a kind of board member position is, oh, you've got high retention. Why is that? I can literally explain every single person that's joined the organisation and why they've left. And I think if you did like a kind of analysis over it, 75 to 80% would be because of money. And what do you do about that? Because you then apply for pay rises, and then the first question you get asked is, oh, they can't be earning that. So trying to lead that, I can only imagine as a corporate, if you knew that you go selling X product, mean you're going to have more money in the shareholder pocket, which means you can then say at the end of the year, we've had our best year yet, you're all going to get a percentage of that. Oh, and that's what I want to do for our team. Like, I see the hours they work, I see what they put in. Like, I'm having conversations with my staff right now. They're saying, Sarah, look, we can't work probably next year for you because the cost of living here is so expensive that we need to be able to rent. We want to move out from our parents' home. And I'm sat there being like, you are the best employee, one of, that we've ever had. How can I make this work? And it's impossible for me because unless a real estate agent, maybe someone's listening, comes along and says, we'll donate your housing for your staff. But then they'll say, if we donate a house to a staff member here versus building houses for children, say in India, naturally, where's the biggest need? So you're constantly in that battle. And that's where I don't know as a leader, and as much as I'm grateful for the feedback, I guess, unless I walk in those footsteps where I have got a budget, where I have got the ability to really show up for the person I know I'm capable of, I may never know. And if I've managed to do what I've done now, and this is not ego or pride, honestly speaking, to be able to get Sparkle where it is with the limited resources that we've had, I'm really hopeful for Sparkle that the more people we hear about it, the more people we get involved and attract hopefully good skill sets of people that haven't got the skill sets I have, we can be even stronger because we've just touched the surface. And you said that about what's the next 10 years. If I was left to do the things I want to do and I had a budget, watch out, world.
Okay. So we talked about this, that Sarah is Sparkle and Sparkle is Sarah. But what is the future for Sparkle and what is the future for Sarah in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years? Do they? I mean, you will always be Sparkle to some degree, but do you remain the same entity? Do you do something else? Do you do something else in parallel to support it? Well, what does the next few years look like?
I'll start with Sparkle first. So I think the plan is for the next couple of years is that I'm going to try and transition myself to not being involved as much in the day-to-day. It's already started. We've got a much stronger team in Malawi, so that helps. But then also here in the UAE, UK, wherever it may be, that we'll get full operations team involved so that I can take more of the sort of fundraising patron role. So that would be a hope. Sparkle, we hope to replicate into other countries outside of Malawi. So we've got 100,000 lives by 2030 that we want to impact. So that is growth, but I'd rather we only reach 35,000 than we say stable and our income is guaranteed. So let's see how that kind of translates with worldly politics, because we're impacted by every single war, every conflict, everything decision that's made. But that will be, we grow the team here, and Sparkle has basically arms in different countries across Africa, and we've just opened in the US, so that also hopefully have people there and they fund the project. I dip in, dip out in terms of speaking events, strategic direction, and maybe 10 years from now would be sat as a board member. That would be where I'd see myself.
Okay.
For Sarah as an individual, I really want to see kind of policy change at the top level. Now I've learned enough about the sector and knowledge that I'm in these conversations now that I don't just need to be specific to Sparkle as an organisation, but how can we change the ways that things are done? How can we educate more people so that across the board charities can benefit when people donor mindset? So hopefully this book will come out this year. I can now say that without it. And I want to be able to do more kind of consulting for organisations to be able to say, whether it's CSR, whether it's ESG, whatever it may be, strapline that they've put, that we don't need to be a tick box exercise. Let's do something more strategic, and let's ensure there's more beneficial output and better return. And then I guess on a personal side, I hope I've now become a mom. I'm hoping that I'm going to get married, I'll have a family, and I'll be able to do things like go on a walk with my parents and talk about normal stuff, watch a movie, all of the things that kind of I've never really been able to, and sit there and go, because I know that people are kind of taking care of certain things. And I just want to raise awareness, truthfully. I'm living testimony that one person can make a difference. And if we can encourage more people, no matter how young or old they are, to do the same and give them a bit of inspiration and a bit of grit and purpose to say, right, you go as well. That for me would be in 10 years what success would look like.
Wow, amazing. Before we wrap up, how can people contact you, look you up, support you?
Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, email, our website, we're everywhere, the Sparkle Foundation. You can find us. It's not too difficult now, thanks.
The Sparkle Foundation.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, as always, a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for being open and sharing. And I hope we have unboxed impact for a few people to understand a bit more on what it's involved in doing the work that we do. Thank you.
No worries. And thank you. And well done for everything you're doing, honestly. It's a pleasure.